Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tender Teens Hub. This is where we inspire, we learn, and we connect. So, with you right now is your host, Dave. Uh, you can call me Kibiator as well. yeah, and it's such an honor to host this show right now, even as we delve deeper onto issues that do concern us as parents, if you are there as a parent or guardian, also towards the people who really matter to us most, and that being uh, our children. But again, for this particular show, we want to talk not only about the children, any kind of children, but some children who have special needs, and in particular, those who have ADHD. So I want to pose a question to you guys. Have you ever heard of ADHD? What do you think of ADHD? Mind you, these are initials of certain words, and that is what we will be looking at and how we are to help those children who have these similar needs. So I'll start off by giving us a definition based on what the medics do tell us. So ADHD, this is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children. But from my standpoint, I will, as we look at what it is, I would pose this provoking thought to say that they're not just children with disorders, but whenever we understand their situation, we will be able to know how best to help them and realize that they are special gifts of God to us. So, as it is known, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, um, it's a behavioral order and is usually seen among children and is characterized especially by inattention or impulsivity or in some cases hyperactivity. So again, for all these huge terms, maybe if I was to break it down to some symptoms, have you ever realized one of your children or some child that you know who cannot sit still for a long while, or they are always fidgeting doing something, or they are very forgetful, or doing many other things that at times left to you, you may not really understand? Yeah. So these kinds of behavior usually appear within children, and if we do not, if we are not careful about this, we will miss an opportunity of being a blessing to these children in how to bring them up in ways that will benefit them. And so this is very important, hugely important, especially if you're in that space right now. And so I want to also bring clarity. We have different types of ADHD conditions. Maybe different children are different with depending on the ADHD type that they have. So one of them that we have is called is commonly known as ADHD combined type. So this is the kind of condition, if I was to use condition other than disorder, um, that is characterized by impulsivity and hyperactive behaviors, as well as inattention and distractibility. And maybe you are well aware that maybe there's sometimes when with your child, when you give them some kind of work, they are not able to sit still and focus on that kind of work for long hours, or they are easily distracted. Some and you cannot understand, and sometimes you scold them. But sometimes it's because of their situation. They really can't help it. But if you are to understand this, then the question would be how best are you to deal with them? The second type is the one of impulsive and hyperactive, um, the hyperactivity. And by this, I mean the person is characterized by impulsive nature. They just go by moods and by emotions. And and rationale is not included. And they have no attention. they pay in attention spans and distractibility. They are easily distracted. And then the third type is one of um, it's predominantly um, lack of attention. At the same time, they are highly distracted. So with these different kinds of all these three different kinds of ADHD, what is the cause that makes our children be in this space? And not just children, but because we also have adults who struggle with ADHD. So one of the causes, as it has been said, and I am not a doctor of any sort, but in doing um, in learning and matters education, because I have been in a space where I have to deal with children with ADHD. I equally have to be well versed. Um, so one of the causes we are told is mostly an aspect of a genetical disorder or a genetical condition where this condition has been passed on from one generation to the other, from a parent to a child, and now it matters in various degrees. So that, for example, if a parent has ADHD in mild levels, uh, that being both the father and the mother, then the child's ADHD condition will be higher. And so can give um, this can equip the parent to cut. We usually call this term cut the child some slack, because sometimes we may blame them for some things they do, and they really where it generated from is from ourselves. We are the parents, so it's usually an issue of a genetical issue. Um, and one thing I equally want to say, again, this will be in more medical terms, but it kind of helps because it is a brain based biological disorder. So, lower levels of dopamine, which is a brain chemical, um, which is a neurotransmitter, they are found in children with ADHD. And at the same time, I wish to tell you that in places within the brain, in places because the brain has different parts, the places where we require higher brain metabolism to control issues to do with movement, issues to do with social judgment, issues to do with uh, how attention, all these aspects within that particular part of the brain. So there is lower metabolism. So the neurotransmitters that are to connect the brain in working together with different parts of the body, then that is affected. So don't think it when you tell a child to pay attention and they cannot focus for more than 5 minutes, they are trying to be rebellious, as some parents would feel. Understand that sometimes, even as you um, engage in this subject, you'll be able to have at least better answers or feel better equipped in addressing these issues. So the question is, who is affected by ADHD? The reality, as we have said, it's a genetical order condition. I refrain from using disorder into using condition. It's a genetical condition that children may be born with. And some of these symptoms will be identified when they are young, and as they grow up, they still have this condition. So it affects any and every person who especially has that kind of lineage. However, however, and you can go equally and research on this. It's actually said that majority of people do have ADHD, just that it varies. It varies in degrees and intensities, where some is very high and others are very low. Um, and so ADHD, especially of hyperactivity, is more common among the boys than the girls. So you can see that the boys are the ones who are jumpy. We have girls who do that as well, but it's commonly to the boys than the girls. Um, I wish to add one of the things in terms of symptoms, some of the things that would help us. Maybe you are there and you're thinking, does my child have ADHD? Or the question of how do you, how would you know? How would you know that my child has ADHD and you're not so sure? Here are some of the symptoms that you can check that will help you identify. And I'll just run them quickly. One is, for example, the aspect of inattention. Let's say if your child is there and they have a short attention span, that they have difficulty in sustaining attention, then this is one of the ways of identifying. The second one is, for example, difficulty listening to others. Whenever you tell them of whatever instructions, you realize that they, they have a hard time to listen or difficulty attending to details. This can also be a common symptom. They are easily distracted. They are very forgetful. Uh, have poor organization skills. They are poor with their study skills. Whenever you see some of these things, they all are under the category of inattention. They are not able to pay much focus on that. This could be one of the symptoms. The other one is impulsivity. For example, in moments where they interrupt others whenever you are talking and then they just come in quickly. And some of you maybe are nodding your heads because you see yourself in that space. Um, they have difficulty waiting for others to finish, you know, they wish to engage. Another thing is they tend to blurt out answers instead of waiting to be called upon. They have difficulty engaging in quiet activities. Um, Another one is on losing and forgetting things frequently and repeatedly, very often. They just do it. And many a times, maybe for you parents, you constantly ask yourself, I gave you your uniform. Why did you lose it? And they cannot explain. Um, Another one, which is very important, is also the inability to stay on task. They shift from one task to another without bringing any to completion. And this can equally be very frustrating for parents. And if you're a parent there and you're saying, oh, my child needs to do this, but they start and they stop. And even for you have to remember one thing: the child sometimes does not know that this is happening. They just do it because of the condition, not because the child wishes to be rebellious. This is one key thing to learn, even as we are talking about being inspired, learning, and being able to connect. How will you be inspired? How will you be able to learn to connect with your child, especially if your child has these conditions? Yes, so these symptoms of ADHD, if you have listened to all these among many others, and you realize that my child or your child has, or somebody else's child, maybe your friend, they have this condition, how best are you to help them? The first one, which is very important for all of us, is education. And that's why I'm really happy that you're watching this show, that you may be educated about the child, that you may be educated about this condition. Because the more you are educated, I remember when I was interacting with an ADHD child and I was in a space of teaching them, I realized that they would very quickly lose um, focus. And it was quite frustrating for me at the time. Also, I gave them some work and the work wasn't done as well. And there were some issues, there were certain conditions that were happening at the time that made me question, why is the child doing this? And at the time, before all this information came in, I was thinking, could this child be rebellious? But when I engaged the child, I equally saw that the child was very innocent. And it would also bother him to know that he was doing such a thing. So that's when I ended up learning, why is the child doing this way? only to realize that it's a condition. So the first thing to help the child is by you being educated. You being educated about the symptoms, you being educated about how to deal with it. The second thing um, is an aspect of uh, motivation. Every particular child, we are told, whenever they whenever they have whenever you realize that these are some of the difficulties that they are having to battle with, then you have to bring then you have to bring whatever motivation that would help them. For example, this is what I mean. Some children love to fidget with things, right? And sometimes the child that I've been dealing with, the more they fidget, they're able to concentrate at that time. At that time, whenever they're fidgeting or doing something else, then their mind is able to focus on that thing. But whenever you stop, because maybe you're not wired that way, then even for them, in terms of their focus, it shifts off what you're saying onto other things. Just that behaviorally, they're doing as you had asked. So, how are you to use their weakness for strength? This is one good question. So, um, people with ADHD, whenever you are able to engage them, um, for example, majority of them, in terms of the positive things, we've said, we've looked at the negative symptoms. But funny thing, these children are gifted and they have positive responses. For example, majority of ADHD individuals are very creative and they love aspects of originality, and they are very artistically gifted, be it in music or in dance, because whatever they put their minds to do, they are able to do it. But some things cause them to get bored. Maybe you've had your child saying, "Oh, I'm very much bored." Sometimes it's because their mind desires huge challenges that would equip them, that would um, involve them in all facets of their being, be it in the movement, in the thought, in the visuals. This is how they're wired. So one of another ways of helping them is by giving them whatever challenge. For example, my child is very talkative. We talked about one of the symptoms being they talk excessively and they're able to um, engage. They're huge on imagination. But one of the things we realize is that um, giving them tasks of explaining their stories in written form, then this poses a challenge that of something they have a weakness in. They love to tell stories. Are they able to put it in writing? And that's where we get some of those brilliant authors who've written such tremendous books. Um, or some of the guys who have produced movies, then they always come from that sect of people who are able to focus on other things that they're really interested in. Another thing that I'd like to share um, is equally whenever whenever this challenge goes beyond, I would equally recommend seeing a doctor. Um, Medication is as much as like ADHD condition as any other condition. If it goes beyond our control, it's good to seek professional help that they may advise you. And there are certain medications that are prescribed for ADHD children that I will not prescribe, as I am not a doctor, but you can inquire from your physician and inquire on how best to help your child or how best to help yourself. So, um, lastly, I was just studying through this some time back, and I saw that whenever you engage your children with physical activity for even if it's 10 minutes every day, then their mind gets to release off the much energy, especially for the hyperactive children. They're able to release off their energy to doing something else, and that way they are more productive. They're able to do more things in that given timeline you have for them, whether it's in their homework, doing their homework, or in being productive in whatever other aspect that you have for them. Another thing that I would like to bring to your attention, check the overall status of your child, your child's health. Um, lastly, lastly, if you are there as a parent and you are in this situation, how are you to do to your child? Because your child is your child and you have to help them. The first thing is get to love on them. Love on them. I'm one who believes in what the Bible has stated. And as we are told, love believes all things, love endures all things. And one of the things I've seen for sure is that for children who are loved and cared for, there's an aspect about touching and holding. And you've seen that majority of ADHD children, they love to hug, to be embraced, and seek affirmation. They seek affirmation because many people do not understand them. But if you are there as a parent, you get to understand them. So love on them, inspire them, encourage them. Though they are different for sure, you would not expect a child who is in that category to behave in the same way um, as other children who are not in that similar space. There's one of those uh, psychologists who was saying that PhD children are would be defined as the uh, unexplainable underperformance children. The much that they want to do, they're not able to do it to the best of their ability, and they can't explain it themselves. But you get to be there to encourage them and to inspire them to do the very things that they are able to. And what I have seen from a practical point of view is the more they are inspired and encouraged, the better they become. And the more they are reprimanded and scolded, the worse they become. Because majority of them don't understand their situation. And if you are there not to help them through the transitions, it will not make any, there won't be any progress. So think about that. I pray that we may be in a space where we may encourage them, we may inspire them, we may love on them, we may learn how to help them, and we may learn how to be there for them, especially in their moments of need, um, that we may be able to connect one to another. So whether you're there as a parent, be encouraged because there is hope. Medically speaking, there may not be any given cure, but what it is for us is to stand by knowing what God has given us and being able to nurture to bring the best of it all. Thank you so much for listening. I have been your host, Dave Kiviator. Karibuni sana to Tendo Teens Hub, where we inspire, we learn, and connect. I kindly remind you to like this video and to subscribe to this channel and to click the notification button that you may receive all our videos on this channel. And feel free to share some of your experiences, how you are able to overcome, or if you have any pending questions concerning this heated topic among our children, that we may be able to serve them best to the glory of God. I have been your host again. My name is Dave. Looking forward to see you again. God bless you.